Hello, folks. My name's Vic Gilgis, and doing another podcast to help you with your well-being, and obviously to help myself with my well-being. It's the new year, a very cold January, and we have got storm. Well, there's snow outside, and we have got Storm Goretti on our doorstep. So it's blinking freezing. This it really is. I've got the central heating on full, so I'm going to become a pauper any minute with the gas bill. Right, so this is episode 44. It's called Shed Your Psychology and Start Living. And it reminds me, when I thought of this title, it reminds me of a title by a book going back a while now by Dale Carnegie called Stop Worrying and Start Living, a brilliant book. And I think really, and I didn't realise it, but the purpose of this talk, hopefully, is to get you to shift from your thoughts about self and the world and all what have you, to realise that what you've got there is always constant, because the world's always changing. Never put that right. Try. I try. You try. So that's what it's about. So I'll go into some of the detail now. So you lucky people for all this. I'll soon have you skipping round your lounge, hopefully. Right. When was it? Last Monday, because it's Friday now. Last Monday, I went to a meeting, like a group meeting, where there was a discussion on psychology and what have you. And the discussion centred around the traits, behaviours that different people have, some of which are helpful and some of which are, disastrous or unhelpful. And they were anger, judgment, empathy, self-criticism and rationalising. And as you can see, some of those are good, some of those are bad. And the purpose of the discussion was that hopefully once we understand that we have certain traits, that our behaviour, that we have certain behaviours, traits that we exhibit, then we, through this discussion, get to understand that there are certain traits which are helpful to us and certain traits which are not. And there are lots of books mentioned and good discussion around all this. And I'd like to, put my pennyworth in here. It all seemed a little bit complicated to me. In other words, I'm thinking that, I'm thinking in my mind, oh crikey, I'd have to remember for the good behaviour to be like this, and what exactly is that, and I should avoid the bad behaviour and what is like that. Now, when we look at what causes behaviour, and this is an understanding of how we tick, not just you, not just me, but everyone. If there is 8 billion of us on the planet, we all think differently. We all live in our own thought-created realities. Good. We're all unique. So we've all got our different takes on things, and we're all of us will exhibit different behaviours when we are triggered. When something happens to us, we react. Because our brain comes into play and says, oh, either I like that, I don't like, or I'm different to that. And in whatever way we react, And so I suppose what this talk was talking about is how to react better and not react in a bad way that is adverse to us or to others. Now, the fact that our behaviour comes from thought is, I hope, the big understanding here. Let me just kind of. I think this is a little bit of a, going back to behaviour, a little bit of a myth that we can look at our traits, look at how we behave, and learn. I suppose to an extent we can learn to behave better. But give you an example. Quite a few years ago, in fact, many years ago now, I used to co-lecture with. He was a professor, this guy, who had this wonderful, I thought, gift. Well, it was a gift. When we were in front of the class, he would ask the students, this is when we first met the students, the cohort of students, he would ask them their names. So he'd go around the class and say, "What's your name?" And she'd say, "Oh, I'm Mary." And "Where are you come from, Mary?" And so "And what's your name?" The next student, "Oh, my name's Bill. My name's, you know." And so he'd go around the class. And then this was his party trick. After the break, he was able to go around the class and basically say, "Hello, Mary. Hello, Bill." He could remember everybody's name. And well, it peeved me a bit because I couldn't do that. In fact, I have a job remembering names. I have a job remembering when I'm stressed my own name sometimes. And I asked this chap who I lectured with, how do you do it? And he said it was a technique that he'd learned. And in fact, he did later bring some consultants in, and this consultant actually did this in a room where she asked the students to point out to, it was more than a dozen different things about the room. And in turn, the consultant went through and remembered all these. So these memory tests do work. Right, so let me get to the point. When I went out to lunch with this guy, and I think it was about a fortnight later, we'd had lunch and we were walking along the pavement there on the university, and we turned a corner and we bumped into a cohort of these students, and he was flabbergasted because there was all saying, "Oh, hello, Professor so-and-so," what his name was. He could not remember their names, because it was not the way in which his memory worked. And so I suppose what the point, and I laughed inside, and I shouldn't have done, because this fella had come a cropper to his own cleverness and technique and what have you. He just couldn't do it because he had to do it in this kind of order. And this is like life. So the point I'm making is that in life, we cannot, when we're triggered, we don't all of a sudden remember how to be Superman or Superwoman because we've learned a particular technique. It's not like that. And I remember this. And so that, you know, my of this discussion, my view was there was lots of things to remember, to trying to be good and not be bad, and that how useful was. Yes, it was some information that we were given as to what good people behaviour was like and bad people, but let's face it, we all get triggered and we all react, and sometimes we can react like a bit of a monster and we may regret it afterwards, but that is life. And we've got to remember and put this into perspective that when you look at it, we're just kind of beings trying our best, sat on a planet called Earth, which is a piece of rock which is flying through the galaxy at so many, I don't know, thousands or billions of miles per hour out into, the Voyager thing that was sent up by the Americans, which has now left our solar system. The last picture it took of Earth was like a grain of sand. And I think when we put ourselves into perspective here, who gives a monkeys? Well, the universe certainly doesn't. And I didn't mean it like that the universe doesn't care. No, life obviously is life. And when we go with life, it helps us. But when we go with our little kind of thoughts about that, in other words, when we get triggered, oh dear, our ego has been upset, our sense of self has got upset, we forget that we are being lived. And we seem to get it the other way around. We think that our little worries and remembrances are kind of can't be overcome. When in actual fact, in other words, we look at the outside world and what triggers us. And what triggers us yesterday is not what triggered us 6 months ago. And no matter what we do, like as the story of myself with this professor, life always changes. Life will always come up with something new. And that's the good thing about it, is that we've got to realise that what never changes is what's inside of us. Not this, and not our heart, not our head. It's our psyche. It's what is inside of us and never changes. That life's energy never changes, which is the energy, same energy as what runs the universe and keeps the planets in place. It knows what it's doing, and that energy runs through us. And how often do we forget to refer to that? We don't. We refer to our psychology. We look at something happens, and we rely upon, in this case, that discussion is saying, rely upon some mental trick to behave who gives a monkeys? You try to do your best. We all try to do our best anyway. But when we're up in our head over it, we're not working off what is real, what life is inside of us and the intelligence that it's got. Okay. So, I think we ought to look here at recognising the role of thought in reality. And I've said this before, that we live in a thought-created reality, and when we start thinking about stuff and we compare it against our psychology, in other words, our beliefs and attitudes and upbringing, the way we are, then we either like what we see in life or we don't. And the mind tries to protect us. And if there's something that we don't like, which triggers us, which we get a bad feeling, the mind tries to do something about it. What we should remember is that because life always changes, then if we leave that thought alone, another thought will come along. And that thought might be the same, it might be different, and it might be great. But when we hold on to a particular thought, that is, say, this bad thought that's triggered us, then we keep it alive. And our consciousness puts bells and whistles around that thought, and we keep staring at it, and we are fixated by it. It takes us out of the flow of life. Now, what I mean by that is, if we imagine life as like a river where the water is flowing along down the river, what we tend to do is, when we don't like something we see in the river, we in effect scoop a bucket of it out of the river and look into the bucket to examine what is in that bucket that we don't particularly like. So, in other words, we've gone out of the flow of life and we've gone into the not now. We've either looking at that bucket as to regrets about the past, or we're looking at that bucket as to worries about the future. Oh my dear. When in actual fact, we've come out of the very thing that sustains us, which keeps the universe ticking, the big thing, the important thing, the thing that we refer to least because we're up in our psychology. We are taking ourselves out of that flow of energy, out of the nowness, out of the ability. We're not looking at the ability we have to get a knowing of what to do next, which comes naturally. That's our innate okayness. We, like as babies, we're not born miserable. We only cried when we need to be fed or cleaned, what have you. No, we, as we get older, we'll lose that innate kind of... wrong to say we lose that innate. You never lose, it's always there. But what is piled on top of it is our changed consciousness on the things that are wrong, the stuff we've taken out of the river, looking at that we don't like, and basically seeing that as our lot when it is not our lot, and focusing on it only drags us down. So, that type of behaviour is, in other words, is where we are doing ourselves in. And it's a metaphor here, is that a troubled person, and I get troubled, you get troubled because of being up in our psychology, when it really starts to upset us, the metaphor is like we become a man or a woman staggering along with so much heavy thought, wanting to react. And that staggering person is staggering along with a rifle pointed alongside their leg towards their foot. And undoubtedly, at some time, that confused person up in their head with all their psychology is going to shoot themselves in the foot. That's what we do. That disturbed behaviour, we end up shooting ourselves in the foot, and then we have to heal from that. We may worry about doing that again, and will it happen in the future? No, that is not what is going on. If we step aside from that, which we can do, that's our choice, then things start to disappear in terms of that heaviness that we hold on to. When we release that, because that is not our reality is okayness, we start to settle, we start to let go of that grip that our mindset has on what we believe to be true, which 8 million other people would believe something different. We all live in our thought-created reality. We've got to realise that there is a difference between our psychology and what the difference between that or our imagination and what is real. So I'm saying that we are more than skin and bones. We are more than our psychology. What we really are is divine in terms of being part of life, like nature. Nature always changes. It doesn't worry about or is in control of those changes. That's life's energy. It changes. And when nature goes along with it as it does, and we see the beauty in nature, like today, I said we've got in the midst of this storm Goretti, and it's very cold and all the rest of it, but soon, it's going to change. So that's the nature of things. The weather doesn't worry about that. It just happens because that's life. When we get like nature, we become better equipped to accept is the wrong word, but to be knowing that that is part of life's natural flow. So form and our thoughts about stuff is form always changes. And so when we realise that if we leave it alone a little bit, the next thought, as I've said, can be different, can be better. But it will always change. It will go from good to bad to indifferent. What does not change is the formless, which is inside of us, which is our anchor. And it's intelligent. It knows what to do. That is a very important lesson. So in other words, our psychology is fickle. It likes this, it doesn't like that. What is always there, is always constant. It's inside of us, but we relate eternally to what is outside of us, and we don't have to. So if we look at our troubles as an iceberg, we could be saying that when something upsets us, we chip away at the iceberg because those are the troubles to try and remove it. And we now know that 90% of the iceberg is underwater that we can't even see. The only way to kind of reduce that iceberg is not to chip away at thoughts, not to, as I said right at the beginning, to look at a particular behaviour and try and chip away at the bad behaviour and concentrate on the good behaviour. The only way to get rid of all that lot, which is unhelpful focus on particular thoughts, is to, in the iceberg metaphor, is to raise the temperature of the water, to melt the iceberg. When we do that, the iceberg melts, our troubles melt, and by when I say raise the temperature of the water, that is not relating to all that stuff, but to be going back to what is formless, which doesn't change, our life's energy, which holds us, it's got our back, which is inside. So, cause and effect is another problem. When when a thought appears, if it's not a thought that we like, we can react to it, or a feeling can occur, and that is just energy. All of a sudden, we don't feel very happy. That is what happens. What can happen there is, if for some reason the feeling is a bad feeling, the mind straight away comes in with thinking about what caused that. And that could be us going back into saying it's that particular trauma. So we're going back into the past. And that trauma, which happened then, but is not there with us now, a part in our thinking, is brought from the past back into the present. This is why I'm saying that the now, the present, is very important. When we realise that in the present moment, that trauma isn't really there, it's part of our imagination. It is us that bring it back to life. When in actual fact, in the now, we can be aware that things are okay, that we don't have to be frightened by a thought, because a thought cannot harm us now. Only our thinking about it can. So we don't have to be afraid of thought. It's very important. When we start going into, well, what caused this effect, then we're going back into that river, scooping out the water to look at the bad stuff. When we can see through this, that it's our thought doing this, and we don't have to solidify that thought by holding on to it, that we can release it, we start to get to know what to do. Now it's not a trick, it's a natural thing about life. We just start to know what to do. I was in the village next to where I live, next to Nottingham, Beeston, and I go there every day. So there's nice cafes and what have you. There's lots of dog walkers, and there was one set of dog walkers going the opposite direction to another dog walker, and the dogs started barking at each other, and one particular dog was really upset. I mean, but the barking stopped when the couples, the owners, kind of separated away. And I noticed this particular dog that had been barking the loudest stopped barking because the other dog had disappeared and just shook itself. And I could like intuitively know it was just shaking off that energy. Oh, no, I got rid of that, let's carry on now with the dog walk. That's what we've got to do, is carrying on and enjoying what's right in front of us. But we don't enjoy what's in front of us when our mind is on the past or something that's about the past that has triggered us. So I suppose it's spirituality versus what's inside versus psychology. With the psychology, we'll always go down rabbit holes. Now, when we move away from our psychology, our intellect, trying to solve things, because it can't solve life. The brain does not understand life. The brain is a blinking computer. It's programmed by us, by our behaviour, by our parents, by our environment. What people thought about and worried about 100 years ago is different to what we think and worry about now. A lot of the youngsters are worrying about what's on the web and looking more and more as to get approvals and, yeah. But that's what we're doing anyway. We don't need the blinking web. We've got it in here, haven't we? That's doing the job. Dickon Bettinger, I was listening to a brilliant guy on the principles, and I've noticed that the practitioners of the three principles who have met Sid Banks were really changed. That says a lot for a being that has just been transformed. That energy is passed on, that understanding is passed on to others. Dickon Bettinger, going back to, he told a story about a young lad he met whose parents had taken them to Dickon Bettinger to be counselled because he was not behaving right. He was not behaving like a child. He was behaving more like an adult. And I was worried about this. He's not playing out with the boys. He thinks too much. Anyway, Bettinger saw him, and the story is a brilliant story because when Dickon Bettinger met this young lad, the first thing the young lads asked Dickon Bettinger was, "How are you?" and Dickon Bettinger made some reply, and then Dickon Bettinger said, I noticed that you were inquisitive about my well-being. Why is that? And the young lad just said, "Oh, I'm pleased that you're okay. I'm okay," etc., etc. So Dickon Bettinger said, what makes you okay? Is there anything that you do to make you okay? And he says, "Oh, yes." He said, what I've found is that when I go and lay on my bed, just before I fall asleep, I get into this state where I'm just okay. I've stopped kind of thinking about stuff and I'm just happy. I'm just content. And I've just noticed that just being quiet and being without any thoughts about stuff, I just seem to get to know what to do. Talk about wisdom from the words of children. I thought that was a great story. It really was. So I think the only advice I can give you, and I'm not here to go, I'm not trying to preach. I'm actually talking from neuroscience. The proof is that when we move away from thinking about life to basically living as life, because we are life, life moves through us. We undo that when we relate always to our identity, because our identity is not fixed. You're not the same person you were, thank God, like 5 years ago. It changes. What never changes is your wisdom, is your intuition, is your sensing, etc., etc. So you are not you, if you get that. You are life, okay? And think about what I said earlier. It's about reality versus imagination. This is imagination. Reality is different. So I hope you think it's turned out nice again. I'll stop blabbing on now. And I'd like to go to just a little bit of relaxation. And in relaxation of the mind and the body. So, in other words, and it's not a trying thing. You don't have to try to calm your mind. That is a thing that just happens naturally as you get to understand that always relating through your mind. It's like being on social media is not the way forward. It's not the natural way anyway. So it is nice to just sit with ourselves. Maybe this could be for, say, 15 minutes once a day to start off with. Just breathing and resting. Just kind of not being in our head. Maybe box breathing. What I mean by that is, say, inhaling to the count of 4, holding it for the count of 4, and then exhaling to the count of 4. Some of the latest neuroscience research shows that what really stops the mind worrying or helps it not to worry is 3-4-5 breathing, which is breathing in for 3, holding for 4, and breathing out for 5. So it's nice to just sit and let our awareness be with our senses, because that's real. What we smell, what we see, what we hear, what we touch, what we can feel. That's real. Our imagination about stuff is made up. So just get with the now. Our imagination is always about the past, always about the future. It takes us away from the now. This little practice that I'm talking about takes us right into the now. Breathing, being with our senses. It's so lovely. And then going to the body, thanking the body for what it does all the time. It does stuff without us having to think about it. We don't think about walking across the room. The body does it for us. We don't think about our breathing. We're taking a sip of tea. Actually, this is not tea, it's orange juice. Look, yellow, like the mug. This is orange juice with bits. I never seem to get the ones without bits. I don't know why. Sorry. Yeah, relaxing. Right from top of our head, our scalp relaxing. That's nicely just going down. Relaxed cheeks and jaw, so easy, relaxing down our neck. Just let the shoulders relax down. Oh, lovely. That's right. Just down, calm chest. Easy breathing. Just comfortable. Sat in the chair. Just feeling the chair in contact with our bottom, just lovely. Down to our hips, nice and soft. Down to our thighs, easy and relaxed. Knees soft. Down to our calves, nice and easy. Lovely as we go down to our body, so relaxed, that's right. Easy on our ankles and our feet, right down through to the tips of our toes. So relaxed. Now we're totally relaxed in our mind and our body, in the now, just with life. Nothing to worry, because life knows we know. We are life's energy. Life lives us. We've just been carried along, knowing what to do, being in the now, present to enjoy what is right in front of us, not impeded by bad thoughts or worry thoughts. Worry is not a thing. It can't get it in a wheelbarrow. We create it. The only creator is what's inside of us, and that is peace, love, understanding, and wisdom. The wisdom to know what to do next always turns up. When we take the next step in life, it always lights up. We get to know what to do. We don't have to see the whole staircase in front of us to know what to do. Just take the next step in life, move forward in life. With this ability, what has our back, we get to know what to do next. Our awareness of what's in front of us informs us, gives us a knowing of the right thing. So now we can be confident. We don't have to start thinking of behaviours to be confident or worry about bad behaviours. Our behaviour comes from inside, not from thoughts about stuff which can be hurtful or gleeful, but from knowing that we're okay. We are okay because we are. We are life. We are lived. We know. And because of that, we can enjoy and we can help others. So come back into the room. I hope this has helped you. As I said earlier, it's turned out nice again, hasn't it? You take care. Thank you.